Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Today I'm going to start off by showing you a couple of melodicas. Melodicas are interesting because they look like a keyboard. They have sections on them that look like a keyboard. I only have two of them, but I use them a lot and I like them very much. Let me show you the one I use the most. The one I use the most is this one, and I should put the black notes on top. It's actually, you blow into it, this is a mouthpiece. You can play single notes, you can have chords with it, and it's very easy because you can finger it. You just finger it just like you would kind of like a piano when you blow into it. I consider it to be a woodwind instrument because you have to blow into it. And it would have reeds on all of the keys, and as you blow into it and press down a key, it works with the reed that's attached to it and makes the sound. I've had this for several years. This is a Hohner. It's made in Germany. It's perfect pitch, and I played it a lot, and I've shown a lot of things about music on it. So if you look at it, and I hold it like this, you have three keys over here, and then you have the one next to it on the bottom of it, so that would be the C. So you have, anytime you have three keys like this, and I should look at it so I know what I'm showing you, then the one to the, anytime you have two keys like this, and the one next to it is always going to be a C, and there are two or three C's on this instrument. It sounds a little somewhat like a harmonica. As I said before, it's perfect pitch. You can play it in any way that you want to, and you could play it, most of the time you're just going to put it in your mouth and blow into it. That would make it a woodwind instrument. It doesn't have strings. It doesn't have anything that a piano would have, but it looks like a piano, and it plays somewhat like a piano, and you can do single notes or chords or whatever. This is a nice one. I really love it. I've used it for years. Now this one may be a little bit more interesting for you. I'm going to take off the music stand that's attached to it. This is also a Hohner, made in Germany, and this is what it looks like. It looks like a regular keyboard. Now you can get them in different sizes, and I've seen people playing them in orchestras that are larger than this, but this is large enough for me. And there are different ways that you can play it. It has a mouthpiece, and in the back it has a handle, a strap handle. I can pick it up, and I can blow into it. Whoops. You can play chords and everything, and as you're playing it, you can see it. You can't see it from where you are, but the people I've seen playing it put it in their mouth, and they play it with their hand, almost like an accordion, and you can play it that way. If you want to play it differently, it does have a mouthpiece, which you can put in, and you can blow into it through the mouthpiece. It's actually better to use the mouthpiece than it is just to blow into it without the mouthpiece, but it's very easy to lose the mouthpieces. The other thing you can do with it, if I take the mouthpiece off, there is a little tube, and that little tube can be placed where the mouthpiece is, and you can blow in the end of the tube, and get the notes that way. Or you can put it down in your lap, and there is a little music stand that's attached to it. I don't know how it holds much music. I think it probably doesn't. But here it is. You attach it, and you see from the front, you can see like it's a piano with a little place to put your music. It's called the music stand. You can put it down in your lap, and then you take the cord, and you put it in your mouth and play. And you play with both hands that way. And it does have an interesting actually a 2-octave range with maybe a couple of notes. And so this is great. So, but I don't use it a lot for that. If I'm playing it, I usually just take it and hold it by the strap in the back and blow into the mouthpiece and then play it that way. I think some of these extra things like the music stand and so forth is kind of like a design feature. But it is a nice instrument. It's perfect pitch. It does work. Sounds a little bit like an accordion or like a harmonica, but that's the way they're built. And I can undo the music stand. Actually, I have 2 music stands. This one is an exact fit. The other one isn't an exact fit. And you don't need to have the music stand on it. You just hold it, blow into it, and play. Hold it with your left hand, and then play with your right hand. And put it out in front of you. And the people that see you from this side will be able to see that it's a keyboard. People on the other side wouldn't see that. But that doesn't matter. It's a wonderful little instrument, Hohner, made in Germany, same as the other one. Perfect pitch, same as the other one. And a lot of people play those. But you have to be kind of skilled because, you know, like an accordion, you're not pressing buttons, you're using your keyboard with one hand. Now, if you were playing an accordion, it would be strapped to you, and your left hand would have a series of buttons to play for different chords. This does not have that. But there is a melodica, and any melodica that you see is going to have some resemblance to a keyboard. And then you just play it, and I think it's kind of a fun thing to play. I know I went to some kind of a seminar, and I had the other one, I had the green one, Hohner, with me, and they were playing away, and I was sitting in the audience, and I was kind of playing with them, and everybody was fascinated by it, because I was playing harmonies and so forth, but the advantage of this one is that if I play it in front of me, I can always look down and see the keys, because it's not easy to play an instrument up and then play and not look at it. But, you know, if you're playing a piano or if you're playing an instrument, you should not watch yourself play. People get into that habit, and it's not a good habit to get into, because as you watch yourself play, you're seeing things differently than other people see them, and your hands can be out of position. If you're playing a keyboard, then your hands should be up and slightly curved like mine are, because then you get the best attack on the instrument itself. But with melodicas, they're smaller. Some of them come in different sizes. They're perfect pitch, and you can play them, and you can look at yourself playing it. Although, if you're playing an instrument, never look at yourself in the mirror as you're playing it, because what happens is that you actually are having a problem playing it, because the mirror will reverse everything. What seems to be left is right, what seems to be right is left. So these are the 2 melodicas that I have, and I do bring them in occasionally. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn to some charts that I have here. And the charts, I want to just show you some basic things about notes and staffs and how to remember where the notes are and so forth. So I'm going to start off with this chart right here. And this chart, you can see now I've got 2. What I did was I'd make my own charts, because I can't get charts made with what I want on them. So I took some file folders and put them together. This is a whole range of notes with the treble and the bass clef, and I'm going to show you both. The middle note right here is halfway between the treble clef, which is here, and the bass clef, which is here. All of these 5 lines are the staff. You have a staff, an upper staff, and this bass clef staff, and the notes appear either in the spaces or on the lines in the staff, and that's perfectly okay. This is a middle C, so I put a line down down and a line up, because the middle C is halfway between the treble clef, which is here, and the bass clef, which is here. It is considered to be a middle C if you are reading it on the piano. If you're reading it with a woodwind instrument, which is what we deal with in here, the woodwind instruments is that this is a low C. Low because you can't get, for most woodwind instruments, you can't get lower than the C. You can get pretty high, but you can't go down. You can't go lower than that. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but basically that's it. So I made this kind of a green color. It has one line through it. That line happens to be a ledger line. And you will see other ledger lines for this note right here. This is a B, and the high C has two ledger lines. So if I'm dealing with the treble clef, the notes go like this: C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts with A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the A, because it goes, you can go from A to A if you're following the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then go back to the A again. And that's a function of what we can hear. We can't hear anything beyond that. We can hear it in different octaves, but we can't hear it beyond that. So here's your treble clef. Now, if I want to do the bass clef, which is what I'm going to do now, this is the lower clef, and this is going to be B, A, G, F, E, D, C. So that's your lower C right there. B, A, G, F. And then it goes on. I could get things a little bit lower than that, but I decided not to do it. So one of the fascinating things to me is that if you are playing, like if you're playing a piano or a keyboard or anything where you're using your left hand and your right hand, you're playing your left hand on the bass clef and you're playing your right hand on the treble clef. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, but just assume that that's true for the most part. If I look at this, if I looked at that note here, that would be a C, a mid-range C, F, G, A, B, C. If I look at the same one down here, it's an it's an E. There's a kind of a two-step difference in terms of how you read the bass clef and how you read the treble clef. Right here is the C, low C, on a bass clef, but if I read that same note, that would be an A up here. Now, why is that? It's just the way the notes fall. It's perfectly natural. It's C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, but C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You're reading it in different directions, and as you do that, you have a two-step difference. Here's a staff, here's the C. This is C, D, E, F, G. This is C, B, A, G, F. So you go down with bass clef, you go up with a treble clef, and you can see there's going to be like a two-step difference. This is E on the treble clef, but it's going to be a G on the bass clef. It's just the way the notes happen to fall. Now, this is a two-octave keyboard, and I've raised the notes a little higher than we have them here. And you can get from the low C, actually this would be this C right here, to an octave, which is right here, to the next octave, which is right here. So you have a two-octave range, which is what I usually show, and I'm showing a chart. I don't show everything. I show a part of what we're working with, but not everything. And so this happens to be a two-octave range keyboard, and we are doing it from this to this to this. It doesn't seem like it would be that big, but I've written the notes larger so you can see it. So how do you know what notes are what notes? How do you learn the notes so that it's easy for you in order to be able to work with them and remember them? Well, there are certain things that we can use. For example, if we use this and we work just with the lines, not with the spaces, but just with the lines, this is an E, G, B, D, F. And how do you make sense out of that? You can create a little sentence. Every good boy does fine. Now you might want to create another sentence. Every good boy deserves fudge. I've heard some pretty funny ones, but at any rate, it will help you to remember when you see a note. Oh yeah, that's a B. Every good boy does fine. But what about the spaces? This is what dealing now with the treble clef. With the spaces, this is F-A-C-E. And it spells the word face. It's very easy to remember face. F-A-C-E. Now, when you deal with the lower case, and when you're dealing with the lower level, good boys do fine always. It's a way of remembering the bass clef. Good boys do fine always. A little bit different than every good boy does fine, but this does fine thing is contained in both. And then on the spaces, A, C, E, G. Well, someone came up with all cows eat grass. E, C, E, G. All cows eat grass. That's one way to remember it. So what I've done is I've made a couple of other little charts here just for you to see, and I think it'll make it a little bit easier. Let me put this down. My homemade stuff will never win any prizes for artistic merit, but it'll help you to remember. Notes on the lines of the staff. I'm just using regular music paper. I made it a little bit larger. Every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, F. And then, let's see if we can make that magnified a little. Oh yeah, that's great, Rick, thank you. And then you see face is F-A-C-E. And so I don't know if I put that on the next chart, but at any rate. And then on the bass clef, it's G, B, D, F. Good boys do fine, and then always A, right there. Good boys do fine always. If you just take the first letter of the word that I'm describing to you, what you're going to find is you're going to find, you know, just the way that it is in terms of reading the staff notes. Good boys do fine always. And the other one I have, which is similar to it, whoops, I don't want this to fall. Okay, now for treble clef, F-A-C-E, face. And then for the bass clef, all cows eat grass, A-C-E-G. So it's a little bit more complicated on the bass clef. But if you use something like this, it will help you to understand and remember where the notes are. Now, once you start practicing and you start practicing the notes, you don't have to do this anymore. This is just a convenience for you when you're beginning and you find out, say, if you're playing piano or if you're playing organ or if you're playing keyboard, you need to remember that those bass clef notes are 2 steps different than the treble clef notes. And it runs up and down the staff like that. You need to remember that. That's going to be important. And as you learn how to play, especially when you're using both hands and you're using it like a keyboard kind of instrument, then you just have to remember what they are. Once you start practicing, however, it becomes easier, because what happens is when you start to learn how to play music, you learn one note at a time. if I take and teach a student, and of course I don't have any instruction books with me because I wasn't planning to use them, but if I tell people to play a B, I'm going to play the B with them. I'm going to hold it, B. B, and I'm going to write the note down on the staff. This is B. It's one of the first notes that we ever use because it's easy to play and you have better balance. And then in the back, you keep your thumb hole closed. And then usually when you start to think of it, B is actually lower than, higher than, B is usually lower than C, but to play the C, you flip that around. I'll explain that a little bit later. So anyway, then I would give them an added note like A, and we'd play the note, and we'd practice the note. Then I'd make up a little song about the note, and then we'd do the G, and it's B, A, G, F, E, D. B, A, G, F, E, D, and then to get the C, you put down your lowest finger, the little finger, on that little tiny couple of notes, and you get the whole C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Now C on the upper level, which would be this note right here, is going to be a little different because even though B is lower than C, it's always lower than C. When you play the C, you do a switch. You pick up the index finger, you put down the middle finger, and you lift the index finger up. And so it does look like it should be lower because the tone hole is lower. But for some reason, the way that these instruments have been built, the C is fingered like this. You flip it and get your B. C, B. But then after you hit the B, you add the A, one step at a time. A, G, F, E, D, C. So when I was teaching students in a school in a music program, I started them off with the B. Once everybody got the B, I just added the A, and I just added the G. I didn't bother with the C in the first few weeks. F, E, D. B, A, G, F, E, D. What does it spell? Bag fed. B, A, G, F, E, D. It's kind of interesting to see that. And then you can make up all kinds of music with that. When you want to go higher and you get to the C, you have to play this finger, the larger finger, second finger in actually, and put that down, and everything is open except for that finger and your tone hole. Your tone hole is covered in the back. And if you want a G, which is higher than that, you lift the thumb hole in the back, and this finger is the only thing that's on, just this finger, nothing else. So how do you keep your balance? Well, you would keep your balance because, one, the instrument is in your mouth. That's part of the balance. And after that, excuse me, after that, you put your right hand down in a way that's just going to kind of balance the instrument. And I can use my thumb in the back for balance as well. It's not covering any holes, so it's not changing the tone. So B, C, D. And then if I want E above that, I have to put the E fingering down, but that would be over time. And I only approach this one note at a time, two notes at a time, until finally the student knows the whole scale. And it's fine. The way that it is, it's fine. So I'm going to close it here. I have another chart to show you, which I'll start off with next segment, and then we'll go on from there. And I'm going to do a segment on how do you get the most out of your practice time. How do you practice an instrument so it makes sense and you learn from it, and you're not just continually practicing your mistakes all the time and learning your mistakes rather than the right way to play. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.